Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, I'll be breaking down a very bad storm that'll be coming to the United States over the next 4 days. And we are going to be talking about the threat for significant severe weather. This all begins today and will run all the way through Sunday, with most likely Saturday being the worst day for severe weather. We're going to be talking about all modes of severe weather, including damaging winds, large hail, and several tornadoes. And even a few strong and or intense tornadoes will be possible. I'll be giving you the latest breakdown on everything that you need to know in this forecast, and let's begin with what's happening right now in the United States today that'll lead to these two different large storms that'll be impacting the United States. And the first one is going to impact the country today, tomorrow, and Saturday. We are already beginning to see some convection this morning from Arkansas back into Kansas and southern Nebraska. Overall, a lot of the storm activity is not severe, but it is going to bring the potential for some isolated damaging winds if any storms do end up going severe later today. But overall, that is just the beginning of multiple rounds of storms both today and tomorrow. We will have another round of storms fire off closer to the low pressure system that is back over near the Rocky Mountains. That'll happen later today, and that could pose a threat for a couple of strong tornadoes, damaging winds, and some significant hail. So a lot of things going to be happening with that. And then over on the east coast of the United States, it is perfect weather, so you guys aren't going to be dealing with any of this over the next few days. But unfortunately, multiple rounds of severe weather will be coming to the Great Plains, the Midwest, even parts of the Ohio Valley, and as well as the Mississippi Valley. Buckle up, it is going to be a very active next 4 days. We will likely be live multiple times between now and Sunday, so make sure that you are subscribed to the channel down below for severe weather coverage. All right, let's begin first with what's happening for severe weather today. There is currently two different enhanced risks for severe weather. We initially had one large area, but this I think makes more sense overall for today's threat of severe weather. We have one enhanced risk back up in Kansas, which I wouldn't be surprised if they extended this a bit further down to the south. But overall, the main concern in this first enhanced risk for severe weather will be the threat for a strong tornado or two. And by the way, this is a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale, so we're kind of in the middle of things when it comes to a severe weather threat. And then further down to the south, we have another enhanced risk, and this one is more driven by the threat for hail. So definitely make sure that you're protecting vehicles, and as well as, by the way, wind. Both of those will be the main concerns down that direction. We have a large slight risk that goes from northeast Colorado back into areas near the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then the marginal threat that goes all the way back up into South Dakota and Wyoming. So a pretty large area overall for today. A lot of these storms will happen late this afternoon into the evening hours. Here's your hail threat for today. So some significant large to very large hail will be possible. The maximum hailstone size that I have in the forecast today is 3.25 inches in diameter. So pretty large hail obviously is a possibility, but the majority of the storms will produce hail between 1 to 2 inches in diameter. There will be a few though that do go as high as baseball sized hail and maybe even a bit larger than that. The Storm Prediction Center has removed the large 10% hatch tornado risk. They've now shrunk it down just to western Kansas, where there is going to be a chance for a strong tornado or two, with a couple of discrete supercells later today into the evening hours. Here's that damaging wind risk. This is where the greatest risk is for flying trampolines. Overall, this is a 30% chance within a 25-mile radius of damaging winds exceeding 60 miles per hour. And obviously today is tossing trampolines on Tall Trees Thursday, so make sure to get the word out and hatch down those trampolines. Once we go into flying fences Friday, things actually will probably be a little bit more concerning than what we're talking about for today, because the tornado risk is one in a more populated area, and two, it is going to be also another day where we could see a strong tornado or two. The Storm Prediction Center has now issued an enhanced risk for severe weather for southwest Iowa, northwest Missouri, southeast Nebraska, and northeast Kansas, where a potential for a couple of strong and maybe even intense tornadoes could occur tomorrow afternoon and evening. Once again, we'll probably be live tomorrow, so make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified if and when we do go live. But there is also a risk of severe weather as far south as Texas and as far east as Illinois. So once again, it's a large area that we are talking about for tomorrow. The main concern is going to be damaging winds, large hail, and as well as the threat again for a few tornadoes. Here's that hail risk, and again, any of these initial supercells that develop tomorrow afternoon will have an elevated risk for large to very large hail, perhaps exceeding 2 inches in diameter. And then, as I mentioned before, the tornado risk is also hatched, which means that a strong tornado or two will be possible across that yellow shaded area in Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and as well as Nebraska. There's still a chance for an isolated tornado or two as far south as like the Dallas-Fort Worth area tomorrow, so make sure that you are having a tornado action plan in place. Make sure that you have multiple ways to receive alerts, as it is going to be a very active next 48 hours, including that area for Friday. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but the worst day for severe weather is probably going to be on Saturday. The Storm Prediction Center is mentioning that there's a potential here for a widespread severe weather event across the Great Plains and even in back into the Midwest. There is going to be a chance for a tornado outbreak as well, and a moderate risk for severe weather, potentially even a high risk, cannot be ruled out in this area. I'm not trying to say this to scare you, but the magnitude of this event could be rather significant if all the ingredients and all the data stays on track as forecasted. This could rather be, again, one of the more significant severe weather events of the entire year, potentially in the last couple of years even, if everything goes as forecasted. But as I mentioned even in yesterday's live stream when I kind of discussed this, there is still a lot of uncertainty and things could change between today and Saturday. So just keep that in mind. It's not set in stone as a tornado outbreak, but it is something that is going to be at least a possibility for Saturday. Now, the greatest concern is going to be in this enhanced risk area from North Texas back into Missouri and Kansas, even into Oklahoma. The greatest threat is overall going to be in this area here. That is where we may see, again, that tornado outbreak really evolve. There is a slight risk that goes all the way back up into the Midwest. I'm not super concerned about this area, honestly, but I would not rule out that area at least seeing some isolated large hail and damaging winds. And then as we go into Sunday, we have another risk of severe weather. We're not going to talk about this a ton in this forecast, but that would be including areas from Illinois and Wisconsin back into Texas, where another round of damaging winds will be possible with some large hail and maybe even a few tornadoes. Now, here's the timing for today. We'll be watching for storms to fire off around 2, 3, 4 o'clock in Colorado and northwest Kansas. This is where we could get a couple of tornadoes going during the afternoon hours, in addition to some large hail. More storms fire off around 5 to 6 o'clock in northwest Kansas, where once again damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes are possible. By the evening hours, that complex of storms moves throughout Nebraska. Right around midnight, we'll have our second round of storms develop back down in Texas. This will eventually move into Oklahoma and North Texas, where damaging winds and a couple of tornadoes will be possible. And eventually by Friday morning, most of that convection moves into Missouri. And by the afternoon hours, we'll be watching for our second round of storms to develop back over in Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri, where a lot of these storms will be rotating, which means that that tornado risk will definitely be in play tomorrow afternoon. This is by around 5 to 6 o'clock, storms moving into Iowa, and eventually as we get closer to 7, and eventually toward 8 o'clock, those storms are moving towards central Iowa, where damaging winds, large hail, and a few tornadoes will still be possible. And eventually as we go into Saturday morning, things are clearing out, eventually allowing for the threat of severe weather to start to develop as we go into Saturday. Now, back over in southern Illinois, this will also be another area to watch for, as we'll get a complex of storms Friday evening, producing mainly a threat for damaging winds, large hail, but an isolated tornado or two cannot be ruled out of that activity. And eventually, as we go into early Saturday morning, most of that storm activity moves eastbound, where most of those storms will no longer be severe by that point. Now, as I mentioned, for Saturday, we are going to have a very favorable environment for tornadoes. The tornado parameter values are quite literally off the charts right now in the NAM model, showing values as high as 5, 6, and even 7 in some spots, which is really crazy. So overall, a medium to high risk for tornadoes is definitely going to be a possibility. A lot of things, though, that could still go wrong here is that convection in the morning could hinder the overall development of storms in the afternoon. There also could be a cap in place, and also there might not be enough moisture. There are 3 different things that could go wrong on Saturday. So obviously there is still a chance that things do change and that this is not just a full-blown tornado outbreak, but definitely leaning towards this being one of the more significant days of severe weather that we've had in quite some time. So just make sure that you're staying tuned to the channel. We'll have a more detailed breakdown on timing and much more in our next video. So make sure that you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon down below so you're notified when we go live either today, tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday.